November 11th, 2025, 0619 in the morning, 140 nautical miles north of Venezuela's coast, the USS Gerald R cut through Caribbean waters with 75 combat aircraft on deck and over 4,000 sailors at their stations. Radar operators detected two contacts inbound at 430 knots. Low altitude, no transponder signals, no radio contact. The jets were Venezuelan, flying straight toward $97 billion of American naval power. 4 Venezuelan jets worth less than $200 million combined, carrying 0 live weapons, were about to challenge the most powerful warship ever built, not with missiles, but with audacity and high-definition cameras. The Americans held fire, the Venezuelans got their footage, and modern warfare shifted from steel to pixels. At 0615, the Ford's AN-SPY 4 radar array painted the first contact, bearing 285 degrees, range 62 nautical miles, speed 430 knots, altitude 8,000 feet, descending rapidly. Within 23 seconds, a second contact appeared, formation spacing 3.1 nautical miles, both aircraft vectoring directly toward the carrier. Twin-engine fighters, radar cross-section measuring approximately 14 square meters, no fire control radars active, no missile guidance systems radiating, just navigation radars and encrypted military communications. The jets were broadcasting their presence loudly. They were not preparing to attack. Rear Admiral Patricia Chen faced a decision that would define the next 17 minutes. The Ford carried enough firepower to obliterate every aircraft in Venezuela's inventory. 2 Arleigh Burke destroyers flanked the carrier, each with 96 vertical launch cells. The cruiser USS Gettysburg held position to starboard. The computer recommended launching 4 SM-2 missiles at 50 nautical miles. Probability of kill, 97%. Cost per missile, $2.1 million. Admiral Chen made a different calculation. Stand by all weapon systems. Weapons tight, launch the alert fighters. Weapons tight meant the strike group could track but not fire. The Rayam 1-16 launchers would remain in standby despite holding 21 interceptors each. The escort destroyers would hold their missiles despite optimal firing solutions. The Ford was not defenseless. It was making a choice. At 0617, 2 FA-18E Super Hornets launched from the electromagnetic catapult system, accelerating from 0 to 165 miles per hour in 2.1 seconds. Each carried full air-to-air loadout. Combined cost, $143 million versus $84 million for the 2 inbound Venezuelan jets. The mathematics of deterrence were clear, but deterrence only works when the other side plays by the same rules. At 0619, the Venezuelan jets dropped below 2,000 feet, descent rate 7,000 feet per minute. Intelligence confirmed them as Sukhoi Su-30 MKV variants delivered under a $3.2 billion arms deal. No air-to-air missiles, no bombs, no gun pods, just cameras, high-definition recording equipment mounted where weapons should be. Infrared signatures showed cold hard points. ESM detected no targeting radars. The jets were flying fast, low, and provocative, but they were not preparing to engage. They were filming. At 0621, radar detected 2 additional contacts inbound from bearing 217 degrees, range 38 nautical miles. The Venezuelan Air Force had committed 4 jets. The second pair approached from a different vector, forcing the strike group to divide its defensive attention. Admiral Chen's voice cut through the Combat Information Center. All stations maintain weapons tight. Launch 2 additional Hornets. General quarters. The Ford's klaxon blared. 4,000 sailors sprinted to battle stations. The escort destroyers shifted position. The cruiser moved to cover the southern approach. The strike group revealed exactly what the Venezuelans wanted to see: reaction time, defensive posture, rules of engagement, all captured by aircraft that cost less than a single missile. The Americans chose not to fire. At 0623, the lead Su-30 banked hard left, wing vertical, nose dropped 38 degrees. Then it inverted completely, rolling into a dive pointed directly at the Ford's island superstructure. Descent angle 43 degrees, closure rate 540 knots, time to closest approach 8.2 seconds, every defensive system locked on simultaneously, Rayam 116 launchers swiveled, failing systems tracked with 20mm rotary cannons ready, fire control radars painted the Su-30 with enough energy to light up every warning receiver in the cockpit. For 6 full seconds, the Venezuelan pilot flew into the teeth of the most sophisticated air defense network ever deployed, and nothing fired. Admiral Chen held her ground, maintain weapons tight, do not engage. The Su-30 pulled out at 400 meters, close enough that sailors on deck could see the pilot's helmet. The jet wash rattled loose equipment and triggered vibration sensors. One ordnance man reported reading the serial number on the fuselage. The second jet executed the same maneuver. Closer this time, the jet wash activated automatic fire suppression systems in the hangar bay. At 0625, the second pair split formation. One climbed to 12,000 feet, the other dropped to 300 feet above the water. The high jet dove toward the destroyer USS Thomas Hudner. The low jet accelerated toward the carrier's stern, threading between ships at an altitude that violated every safety protocol since 1974. Aegis systems locked on. Fire control solutions appeared. The computers recommended 6 missiles, total probability of success 99%, cost $12.6 million. Admiral Chen's decision remained unchanged. Hold fire. The low jet screamed past the forward stern at 280 meters. The high jet pulled out at 500 meters above the Hudner. All 4 Venezuelan aircraft regrouped, formed diamond formation, and turned south. Total time from detection to departure 17 minutes. Total ordnance expended 0. Total footage recorded 42 minutes showing Venezuelan fighters maneuvering around America's most powerful warship while it held fire. Within 38 minutes, Venezuelan state television broadcast edited footage. Voiceover claimed Venezuelan fighters had forced the American carrier to retreat under threat of attack. The footage went viral across Latin American platforms. Government accounts shared it. Nationalist groups celebrated it. The video accumulated 17 million views in 24 hours. The reality was different. AIS data showed the Ford never deviated from course. Ship logs confirmed constant speed and heading. The strike group continued its patrol for 96 hours, crossing within 12 nautical miles of Venezuela 4 more times. The carrier launched aircraft on schedule. The escort ships maintained positions, but reality doesn't matter when the camera lies better than the truth. From Washington's perspective, the incident tested American restraint under extreme provocation. The Pentagon described the maneuvers as unsafe and unprofessional, but noted no defensive measures were required. Translation: the Venezuelans got propaganda footage, and the United States got confirmation that Caracas would risk mid-air collision for domestic political victory. Why would Venezuela accept such catastrophic risk? Venezuela's economy had contracted 14% over 20 months. Sanctions froze $52 billion in assets. Inflation reached 530%. The Maduro government faced food shortages, blackouts, and growing opposition. The regime needed a win to shift the narrative from economic collapse to nationalist pride. A viral video cost $0 in ammunition. It delivered millions in propaganda value. Within 72 hours, 28 million views. Venezuelan officials claimed the incident proved military readiness. Opposition groups reported temporary nationalist sentiment surge. Polling suggested brief approval rating uptick. The Americans faced different calculus. Firing on unarmed aircraft would trigger international incident, potential civilian casualties if jets crash near coastal areas, weeks of diplomatic fallout, regional condemnation. The propaganda value of destroyed Venezuelan aircraft would hand Maduro exactly the martyrdom narrative he needed. Not firing meant absorbing the propaganda hit, but maintaining operational freedom and avoiding escalation. The Ford chose restraint and demonstrated that carrier power isn't weapons, it's the ability to to remain on station despite provocation, to absorb political theater without compromising mission. The Venezuelan pilots returned to base Aérea Generalissimo Francisco de Miranda as national heroes. State media broadcast debriefings. The government awarded commendations. The Ford's crew returned to Norfolk 8 weeks later with no public recognition, no medals for not firing, no headlines for holding course, but restraint is often the hardest weapon to deploy because firing is easy. Holding fire when every instinct screams otherwise requires different courage, the kind that calculates second-order effects, the kind that weighs propaganda impact against tactical advantage, the kind that understands modern warfare isn't always fought with missiles. At 0642, Admiral Chen stood on the flag bridge watching the horizon. The Ford continued northeast at 22 knots. Flight operations resumed. The escort ships returned to patrol patterns. And in Caracas, a propaganda team edited footage into the next viral sensation. The incident exposed vulnerabilities on both sides. For Venezuela, the gamble paid off domestically but revealed critical weakness. If the Americans had fired, 4 $84 million fighters and pilots would have been lost in 30 seconds. The Su-30 had no defense against the carrier's layered air defense. The dive maneuvers placed aircraft in the worst tactical position. Descending at high speed with zero standoff weapons meant pilots were committed to trajectories they couldn't abort. It was a suicide run disguised as bravado. The only thing keeping those pilots alive was American restraint. For the United States, the incident highlighted deterrence limits in the information age. The Ford carried enough firepower to obliterate Venezuela's entire air force, but none of that prevented 4 unarmed jets from buzzing the carrier and claiming social media victory. Deterrence only works when the other side cares about survival more than spectacle. Venezuela didn't care about survival. It cared about the story, and the story belonged to Caracas. Intelligence analysts noted the incident fit a broader pattern: Chinese jets and American reconnaissance aircraft over the South China Sea, Russian fighters and NATO patrols over the Baltic, Iranian fast boats in the Strait of Hormuz. The playbook: fly close, film everything, claim victory regardless of reality. The pattern revealed strategic shift. Traditional confrontation meant certain defeat, but information warfare offered asymmetric advantage. A single viral video could shift domestic narratives, embolden allies, create doubt about American resolve. The goal was never to win a battle, it was to win the algorithm. By the time the Ford docked in Norfolk, the incident had faded from American news coverage. Venezuelan state media replayed footage for weeks. One broadcast claimed the encounter proved carriers were vulnerable. Another suggested the Burke had been forced to retreat. Neither claim was true, but neither needed to be, because in information warfare, perception shapes policy more than reality. The lesson came down to simple calculus. Venezuela spent $0 on ammunition and gained 28 million views. The United States spent $0 on ammunition and maintained freedom of navigation. One side got footage that played on state television for months. The other side stayed on station and completed its mission. Which side won depends entirely on how you define victory. The Ford proved American carriers can absorb extreme provocation without compromising mission. That discipline and restraint are strategic choices, not weaknesses. That the most sophisticated weapons are worthless without judgment to know when not to use them. But the Venezuelans proved something else. In the age of social media, you don't need to sink a carrier to defeat it. You just need to make it look like you could have. You don't need advanced weapons to challenge American dominance. You just need cameras and willingness to risk everything for 30 seconds of footage. Because hardware can be countered with hardware, but narratives can only be countered with better narratives. And the side that fires first often loses. The silent arithmetic of naval power has changed. Staying on station still matters when the shooting stops, but now it also matters when the cameras turn off. And sometimes the hardest battle to win is the one where you never fire a shot. If you found this analysis compelling, subscribe for more breakdowns of the military encounters shaping modern deterrence, and share this video with anyone who thinks firepower alone determines outcomes in the gray zone.